Welcome to the Only Dream Big podcast, starring your host, Donnie Bedney. Only Dream Big is a podcast where Donnie will share tips and experiences on different topics, such as acquisition entrepreneurship, human capital, and the future of the workforce. He is the president of PSP Metrics and has been in the assessment and human capital management industry for more than 15 years, with the goal of driving change through people. As your guide on dreaming big, let's hear from the man himself.
So welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So excited to really kick off another episode of the Only Dream Big podcast. I am your host, Donnie Bedney, and so excited today to spend a little bit of time with a gentleman who I've been building a relationship with, and I just believe he's, one of the spectacular human beings, if you will, on this earth. Eric Langshur. It has many responsibilities and titles, but I will let him kind of introduce himself in whatever way he feels most comfortable. But I believe that he's doing some amazing things in the world. Eric, thank you so much for being a guest on the pod.
Well, thank you, Donnie. It's great to be with you. I don't know that I want to go anywhere beyond spectacular human behavior. I'm going to invite my wife and kids in to listen to this.
It'll be great, man. We'll make sure that we tag them, when we post the episode and stuff a little bit later. So Eric, obviously on the Only Dream Big podcast, part of the, platform was just to really for me to serve as a conduit, hopefully to continue to inspire people, and anyone who hears this to not only dream big, but, execute, understand how important people, really are to the achievement of dreams, et cetera. And, there's a number of aspects about your story that are very, very intriguing, which I believe, really will serve as inspiration for our listeners. But can you do us a favor and kind of, take us back, arguably as far as you want to, in your journey as an entrepreneur. As I recall, it's almost like entrepreneurship, wasn't necessarily something that you were jumping out at, but there were some different things occurring that kind of caused you to create something that you needed or your family needed at that point. And so maybe that's a good place to start. But did you before that kind of have a desire to be an entrepreneur? Was that anything that you were kind of planning early on in life?
No, Donnie, I've often joked to myself that my career has been a complete accident, and it dates back to graduating from college and my first job. I got a job with an aerospace company, Pratt & Whitney, not because I was seeking a career in aerospace, but because they were hiring. And this was a lot of years ago. And I joined them and had just the absolute great good fortune of having a fantastic first boss who gave me a lot of latitude and the advice to work hard and show initiative. And really just encouraged me to do both those things and explained that there was nothing that I could do that would break the company, and just to really really bring my enthusiasm to the workplace, which was an amazing experience as a first job. To work with smart people, but to be mentored in a way that really encouraged me to bring out the best in me. And so I ended up spending 13 years with Pratt & Whitney and their parent company, United Technologies, and had about 10 jobs in those 13 years. And then left to join another big aerospace company. And it was about 2000 that I got the inkling to start my first business, and not in aerospace, but in healthcare technology.
Wow.
And that was that transition was really linked to a personal experience, linked to the birth of my first son,
Hmm.
Matthew, who's now 23. But Matthew was born with a congenital heart defect and had
Oh,
to have
wow.
a series of open heart surgeries in the first few years of his life.
Mhm.
And it's hard to remember back to 1998 with the internet, which was really in its infancy. But at the time, our family created a website that we used to keep family and friends informed of how Matthew was doing and how we were doing. In fact, it was our brother-in-law
Hmm.
was out in Silicon Valley at the time, said, I want to do something to help you guys. I don't know what to do. So he essentially created a social network.
Huh.
And before we had ever heard the term social networking. And for Sharon, who's a pediatrician, and for me, I was running the aerospace company.
Yeah.
We said, hey, this is powerful stuff.
Hmm.
Let's dedicate our life energies to making this service available to patients and families everywhere. And that's exactly what we did. And we quit our jobs in January of 2000, and we started our first company, CarePages. And little did we know that running a small business was, almost harder than running a big business. Little did we know that a few
Absolutely.
months later, the tech boom would go kaboom.
Yeah.
And little did we know that, one's Rolodex in an industry really does matter. And
Mhm.
not knowing anyone or not knowing any of the ground rules of healthcare would
Sure.
make it more difficult. But we learned a few things along the way, and we fell in love with healthcare. We fell in love with this idea that you can do good and do well. We
Mhm.
helped a lot of people in the process,
Mhm.
and became passionate entrepreneurs. And since then, have gone on to build about 13 companies.
Wow. 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 And I mean, there's so many ways, Eric, to go in that way. And you and your wife, Sharon, are absolutely amazing. Enjoyed grabbing dinner, with you all a few months back and all that. So definitely shout out to her. We may have to bring her on for, her side of the story, frankly, a little bit later.
She is
But,
fantastic.
one of the, one of the questions I guess that I have is, you spoke a little bit about the early encouragement to, kind of bring yourself and your passion, and that's the person I know you to be, right? Just very passionate, authentic. When you talk about, kind of values and, those kind of principles, I know that you brought that to Abundant, and I imagine all 13 companies that you've started. Is that something that, are there any kind of aspects of that you think, people can kind of take from your journey and maybe even apply, right? Because it just seems like a life lesson, immediately, right? If you are, with an organization or in a role that you need to bring your authentic self, to that every day. And there was a line that you said, which I'd love for, we'll have to figure out a way to repeat it or create a reel around it, but in bringing yourself to the company, that like you will not break the company, right? And I think that there's so many people potentially operating, like in fear or with some sort of hesitation, and maybe part of that is because they're not bringing their authentic self. But can you like unpack that a little bit for folks?
Oh, Donnie, that's such a great, great thread to pull on here. And there's so many different places we could go with it. I like to think that everyone, and I mean everyone, wakes up every day and aspires to live a good life and to do their best.
Sure.
And we, we're all in our own way doing our best.
Hmm.
And I've had the great fortune of having mentors and people along the way who have supported me in
Hmm.
that. And I think about giving back and how I can help support others
Hmm.
in doing that. And I remember the lesson that I learned with CarePages, which was our first company, where I used to talk to our people as we grew, and we kind of bumped along for a few years, and then we figured some stuff out, and we started growing very quickly. And as the team would grow, I would talk about creating an environment that was a great place to work.
Mm.
And I learned that for different people, a great place to work means different things.
Mm.
So for some people, it meant Friday afternoons off and, a massage on Friday mornings.
Sure.
So, for me,
I take that schedule.
right? For me, it meant a place where you can come to work and feel valued, a place where you could come to work and feel respected, a place where you can come to work and learn every day and challenge yourself, where you can nurture your curiosity, where you can nurture and develop your life skills, and do it in community with your colleagues and your clients and your suppliers and so I've always thought about how do we create environments that set up the conditions for that success so that we can be our best selves and live our best lives.
That is that's powerful, and frankly kind of goes with I'll say the subtitle that typically I say a lot, just kind of a summary of my career, which is talking about driving change through people, right? I think that it's been something that I've had the privilege to kind of work on and help organizations, but I agree with you. We need more leaders to kind of take that perspective, and really look to create environments where people can thrive, and at least feel comfortable to bring their authentic self. Because one of the things I've said actually on here a few times, and I'll repeat it again, for those who are listening, your superpower is being yourself, right? There's literally, out of these 7.5 billion people, in our world, there is only one you. And make sure that you're continuing to learn, grow, and improve that person, because that is the real superpower that you bring to whatever organization you're starting or currently work in and support, from a growth perspective. So that's a really, really strong lesson. Thanks for that share, Eric.
Well, what's so great about that, Donnie, is that lesson that you just articulated is one of the powerful lessons of history, of the deepest, wisest philosophical thinkers, of the species. When we look at the spiritual traditions or the philosophical traditions, really where they anchor is this idea of, how do we grow as people, and how do we express our authentic selves in service of, the life we want to live.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pivot us just a little bit, man, because I once again, just the uniqueness of the person I am learning you are, as we think about that, and spirituality, philosophy, mindfulness, well-being, even. I happen to know that you have a passion for those things. But can you touch on, I guess, a little bit, maybe mindful, maybe some aspect of the company that you were building, kind of focused on helping people, just live, what I'll refer to as just kind of, or improve their overall well-being, from a life perspective, because I find it to just be something that's, really practical, and frankly, the time that we're living in now, which I believe we're living through a black swan event, right? I think it's more critical now than ever, for people to really be focused on, being mindful, their overall well-being, because I believe that it's kind of the foundation for them to show up as their authentic self. What are your thoughts?
Right on. Yeah. Well, so as you know, I chair the board of Mindful Magazine, mindful.org, which is one of our companies, which I'm deeply, deeply passionate about. My passion actually began, roll the clock back several decades ago, where I realized